Right. Welcome to the Pat Life Podcast. As always, I am Patrick. Today I have with me my friend once again. You all know him by this point. You all love him at this point, just like I do. My man, LC King. What's up, dude?
How you going, mate?
Man, I'm happy to be back. It's been a hot minute since I had the show, and
Yeah,
just happy that you're the one taking this first 2022 Pat Life Podcast into the
yeah.
year.
Into this crazy year, we'll see how it turns out, eh?
I
Um,
It sure is, but
yes. So I've got some interesting stuff to show. It's a bit of a
listen,
show and tell. I've been doing so much research.
well, yeah, you've been on quite a bit of a journey, and just maybe I know you're about to dive in, but give people just kind of what you're gonna give us today. Like, what is like the overview and kind of how you got
The overview was I had this initial idea that precession doesn't exist, and it really came out of the battery, the idea of the world battery and that sort of thing.
it.
I'm like, this doesn't make sense. It's 72 years to do 1 degree of movement changing, right? And I'm like, that's nearly a lifetime to see 1 degree. It's
Right.
like no one to me, a lot of this stuff just needs to be simple. Like people just go out and the world wants to tell you about itself, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
it doesn't need to be over complex. And this sort of thing was just like once I looked into it, I'm like, oh, this doesn't make sense. So
Right.
it's been sort of grinding at me for a while. But the other part of it is that I couldn't ever reconcile this sort of like this narrative of the year started in Aries and then but now we're in Pisces and this sort of, and it's like, yeah, but we don't know nothing about our history. We're only just sort of,
Right.
it was sort of like at the point where we're just learning that we've been lied to.
Yeah.
And we're like, shit, what's
Right.
this all about?
Well,
It's like,
yeah, it's like looking at all this stuff and be like, well, this was true what they told us in the textbooks or in, but this isn't true. Like to the point where I'm like, I don't fucking know. Like what
hey, I'm
what's
like
the
that too.
right? But is you say, and what a lot of people say, Crow says, it's like, look, just go back to nature. Look at nature. And that's obviously what you ended up doing, right?
Yeah, well, that's it. That's what I did. I tried to, and the other thing that really bothers me, and we'll probably go into it a little bit, is like when you get the old Zodiac charts and it looks like when you go, type in old Zodiac chart or whatever, and they all pop up on the internet, you're like, were these made out of the same factory?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
sure they're not from the same time period and then people made them look a little bit different
right.
to throw you off? And
The New York
but
Times, the New York Times of the past. Yeah, run the
yeah,
story,
exactly.
run the same shit.
Yeah. So I looked at them, and in some of them that even have like Aries is marked on the outside, the symbol of it, and then when you look in that segment where Aries should be, it would be like Pisces, and you're like, you could at least match them up, or what are you doing? So yeah, that was basically it. It was this whole thing has been just a journey of looking into the lunar solstices, lunar standstills, sorry, and lunar equinoxes, and so going through that whole, trying to understand them and how they fit with eclipses, and really this has been going on for years. And only just the other day did I stumble across this, what I'm about to show, um, and it's just like, wow, this actually clicks. It makes sense. It's something that I would be able to teach my children because it's very simple, and it's starting to match with um, dates and times that in the past, the old celebrations and festivals, and some of the mythology where you have these weird creatures where they're sort of half man, half goat, all that
Right.
sort of stuff. You know what I mean?
Totally, man. And they have these depictions obviously all over the place in sculptings, paintings, drawings, stories, like you said. And so it's not something that you're just trying to fit the pieces. It's actually going, let me try to figure out what is trying to be conveyed to me all over the place. And so, yeah, you explained this to me on the phone the other day and it blew my mind. So I'm looking forward for those to hear it too.
Because I nearly always say this, but it's like when you look at the past, they've had us believe that they are idiots.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Like we're the modern man.
Yeah.
Look at us now, holy shit, 2022, and it's like, but I threw that out a fair while ago. So that's allowed me to go, okay, let's look for something that's higher than I know about, than I got taught, looking for something that's at a higher level. And especially when you see the buildings, the old mud flood buildings and things like that, and you really look at them, and I love looking at them because they're just like the geometry, the effort, the know-how that went into creating something beautiful it's just stunning. And it's like,
Yeah.
these guys knew geometry. If you know geometry, you're highly advanced in mathematics, and then mapping, and then all the rest of it comes along with understanding that level of geometry, because geometry can tell us so much, and it's something that's really untapped. People talk about cymatics and things like that. It's like, that's all geometry.
Right. So I was just going to say
So
too. I was just going to say, when you
yeah.
look at geometry and then you take it to that next level, knowing now you're dealing with these architectures, these pre-mudfloods, you're now dealing with pure cymatics. You innately, right? We travel across the world to go to these places to just see them. And then
Mm.
every single person I've ever talked to, and even my own experiences in some of these places, you go into me, go, it had this energy to it. I don't know how to describe it, because we didn't have, a lot of us didn't or don't know what cymatics is. We don't know frequencies. We don't know how it looks conveyed, etc. And take it a
Mm.
step further, most of those places, the frequencies aren't even at their fullest potential. Whether you follow the mindset of because they put the rose stained glass in the frames of things.
Yeah,
You
those
know what I
sort of
mean? Like
things. Yeah,
that's
exactly.
so there's a lot of pieces where it's like this still has an energy to it without it being at its full potential, all because of these geometry, all because of the symmetry, etc. So I'm right there with
100%. And that's how we're built too. We got the symmetry, we got all these things. I mean, all of nature has that sort of
yeah, and yeah, we're
um
attracted. They even done all these tests and studies for even the people who aren't conspiracy theorists, can read their psychology today or their people's magazines and saying, oh, look at what the studies show about someone who's attractive has symmetry, right? Well, it's this
yeah.
geometry.
Or the right fire balance, like that's why they have the certain card sizes, and they'll
Yeah,
design them a certain way with the
yeah,
so yeah, the that ratio. And interestingly enough, like phi, or that pentagram,
yeah.
when you look at the sun, and it's doing a 360-degree circuit, but we've got 365 days.
Mhm.
So that means there's 5 extra little points in there. So
Mhm.
the sun, if you divide those 5 days evenly around that circle, it's giving you a pentagram.
I was going to say that's something that's always
So,
been on my mind, where I'm like, wait, we have 360 degrees sun. I was like, something's not right, but that makes
and
sense.
then you have the leap year, which would be 366. They say we got 365 days, 0.25, but that's just an average, including the leap year. But if
Right.
you have the leap year, well, that's then it's got 6 days, so that's your hexagram. So your pentagram morphs into a hexagram and then back into.
Right,
It's
right.
pretty trippy.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say that's a whole podcast in itself, talking about those two numbers and the two
Yeah.
pentagram and hexagram. But let's dive in, man. I feel you have stuff prepared. I think those watching, if you're just listening, I highly recommend checking it out so you can see what Lucas is putting out there. So I'll let me
All right. I'll share screen.
Let me make sure I can share.
Okay.
Do multiple. Okay, you should be able to.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, you're promoting.
I don't know what that was. So it's just, I got some web pages open to show you. Where do we want to begin? We'll start with some of the geometry that I was looking at and some of the lunar stuff that I was looking at. And it was a bit of a process of unfolding, as it were. So really I was looking at the older, the eightfold zodiac. You see this a lot. It's everywhere, this divisions of 8. And so that's what sort of started me going thinking that, and I've read somewhere as well that the the older zodiac was actually divisions of 8 and not 12. And so with that, I sort of, you can sort of see it here as well.
Right.
That's a really cool one.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So what it actually seems to be, this this division, not only is it sort of giving you the solstices and equinoxes, and then it will give you the 4 royal stars, which would be related to the man, the bull, the lion, and the eagle, which would be Scorpio.
So, so eagle in the old zodiac, it would be considered the eagle. In a newer zodiac, for most people now known as Scorpio.
Yep. Yeah, the eagle is Scorpio. Okay. In the old sort of times. So we'll get into that as well. But this eightfold zodiac here seems to be more lunar in nature anyway. And it's dealing with the standstills. So you would have the equinoxes, but the lunar standstills and the lunar maximums and minimums would go between these areas here. So it's on this cross. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know if I have a picture to show you, but yeah, it's similar to this. This is where these, let me zoom in here. On this, you've got the 3. So your lunar standstill would be that middle one, and your lunar maximum and minimum would be that one, and the outside ones. Yeah, so it's sort of depicting that as well.
And in our last conversation, when you showed the different phases of the moon, that was showing a direct correlation to what you just showed us with that picture.
Yep, the lunar phases do. And this is, you also got the old like a heathen calendar as well, that's still in use. And it basically you have the solstices and equinoxes, and then halfway between you have that another celebration that goes halfway between, and it's 45 days all the way around. You add in your 1 or 2, but it is everywhere, even to do with the compass, and it is a way of division. We'll get into the geometry of how this is created a bit later, but it is actually it's a nice geometry, and it breaks down into a lot of the old mapping that you'll see as well, which is it'll go 4, 8, 16, and then 32, and then it's 32 around a 33rd point.
Right.
So,
which has, for those
lots of meanings.
Yeah,
that's
yeah. So that's
so
it.
Here's a nice picture of this these lunar things that happen. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's a clear one for those who are just listening. Lucas is showing us basically the 4 points, your northeast, southwest, but those points where it would be considered the different phases of the moon. They're showing the northern moonrise, summer solstice sunrise, and you can go around, and it's giving more clear words to show exactly what's happening. So I don't want to.
Yeah, and it's good. It's showing the range in the 45-degree angles. It's showing the range of the moonrise at the minor standstill and the major standstill and that sort of thing. So you can actually see these ranges change, and then your lunar standstill would be that cross point.
Right. What's
Again, relating to those four, special stars or the royal stars.
Yeah. What's so fascinating about this, the first thing that's just coming to my mind is just if you're talking about math, my high school geometry and my high school algebra classes of the XY axis, like and just showing these plotting these graphs and just obviously
Yeah,
doing, but just seeing exactly how much math can be conveyed or how much math is happening all around us all the time, but then how it's conveyed in these charts and you're seeing the symmetries that come from it. So, and it's again happening everywhere around us. So I just find that fascinating.
yeah, and this is sort of how you would set up on ground,
Oh, okay.
by looking. It's the same thing. It's just laid out on the ground,
Just another
and so
visual
you would,
component.
yeah, so you would start to line things up with north, east, west, and you'd start to see these actions happening based on that central point that you're working from.
Hmm.
um, and this would be your mercurial point, your Polaris that you're working from here,
Right.
where everything's extending from. So
That
I
looks,
think that's it.
yeah, no, that's
Yeah,
it's good for
so
people.
you can see that sort of layout that's on the ground here is very similar to that.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Now that makes
Old,
more
really,
sense.
really old sort of depiction. I think it's Syrian or something like that.
Right.
Uh,
And for as most of us know, a lot of these things that we see in artifacts and paintings, all this stuff is not by accident. Something's being expressed. So I'll leave it at that.
yeah. So what I then, after doing that research on the lunar standstills and those sort of things, I just noticed this menorah, and it's basically the same. It's got you're looking east, and then you've got the minimum here, and then a standstill, the equalization, and then the maximum here. So it's this object itself is actually um, lunar in a sense. It's also solar, but it's showing you this sevenfold nature of this lunar movement, which I thought was really interesting.
It
So
is.
I did a little bit more research on that. Don't mind my
Yeah.
scribbles on it. That was
Well,
mainly my fat fingers on a phone.
well, real quick before we go on to the other stuff, just can you quickly explain maybe to people what is the minimum, the lunar minimum, the equalizer, and then lunar maximum? Just a quick brief overview.
Okay, so the the sun will go through its cycle from Capricorn to Cancer and back in a whole year. All right, so but it hits Capricorn and then it hits Cancer and then comes back. Well, the moon does that same back and forth in a month. But what happens is over a period of 18 years, it's going to change its range to go outside of Cancer and Capricorn. And then it's going to come within Cancer and Capricorn. And this is what these lunar standstills are. They're the maximum points that the moon actually extends to. Um, so past Cancer and past Capricorn in that. And then it goes, and then it's the minimum, that's the smallest extent that it moves to. And there's people that look at the stock market and things and base it off these lunar movements. And there's also people that look at different weather patterns that revolve around this 19-year cycle. And there's probably many more other little things that are going on based on this cycle.
I heard.
But also,
Oh, go on. Sorry.
it dictates, this cycle dictates where the eclipses happen, whether they happen around the equinoxes, the solar equinoxes, or the solar solstices.
Interesting. That's so,
So
and just knowing that all this is just by following what's going on above us, constantly just looking up and being able to map this and knowing that that is something you can map in relation
yeah,
to the precession where we're saying 72 degrees or 1 degree in 72 years, or this it's a little bit more, every single person.
it's with yeah, you'll it's definitely it is trackable. It is a trackable time span, and it is I think it's highly significant actually. We're coming up to 2025 is the lunar maximum, so whatever that brings. And actually I did read, I found an article. I don't know how I come across some of the stuff I do. I just type in stuff and like scan through people's comments and things
Right,
like
right,
that
right.
and end up in down rabbit holes. But anyway, the basic gist of it, he was an astrologer and he was into folklore. But what he would saying is that a lot of the folk tales would either explain half of this cycle or the full cycle, and so they'd give you a story that went along with the lunar solstice, lunar standstills and maximums and minimums. So it'd be a 19-year story that they were basically condensing into a folk story. So that's really interesting. I'd love to actually learn more about that. I'm really interested in you know the stories that go along with
Right.
what's happening in the sky, and that's really why I'm doing this. I'm not doing it for to be really good astrologer or anything like that. I just want to know the stories and the meanings behind some of the mythologies that just really interest me. So
Well, just
yeah,
quickly add on that, and just knowing from a writer's standpoint, you're following constantly the writer's journey, which is following the hero's journey, which, as we all know, all that pertains to the sky clock, what's going on in the sky, the zodiac, everything else, and every single story. And you're going to show us here soon, if not now, just how they're all of our stories are coming from what's happening in the sky. And yeah, we'll go into that now. Just for me, that's so fascinating as a creator too, is my other friend who's very into the same mindset that we are, my buddy Rob, who, shout out to Rob. He has a podcast, Dig Within. We were already creating our own story, taking this awareness and knowing about the zodiac and knowing kind of all these things and going, how do we tell the story, these stories about Mercury and going through these different phases. And we're
yeah.
not even as well versed as you or many others, but it's just even having a little bit of knowledge, it makes you appreciate it that much more and wanting to understand, like you said, know the folklore a little bit more. I'm with you. Like, it's just it's fascinating to me.
It is, and I have this fascination with wanting to know where we are in time or where I am in my own cycle.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
and you do see the story play out, like you say. And I've pointed out to you many times that it's this main character that's in the story is the mercurial character.
Yeah.
So he's always red, and especially in the superhero movies.
Yep.
It's really defined for you. It's a lot of that is really highly based off mythologies anyway, but um, the red and blue character. So yeah, I think how many superheroes have red and blue? Well, it's the joining of sun and moon. This idea of, and you got the purple. They're basically you know so the sun and the moon, they got both energies in them,
Yeah.
intermingling, and but it's really just a depiction of us in a better form. Do you know what I mean? It's just us in a you know the the best we could think of ourselves, you know
Right.
what I mean? Like,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
because and it's really electrical in nature as well. I always go on about anode and cathode, and you need these two polarities to create energy. But it's just the same as how your muscles work. You need to be able to relax them and contract them, and
Right. Yeah,
so it's
absolutely.
these two polarities working within you.
Mhm.
And this
Well,
Trinity, um this has been stuck in my brain ever since I've sort of come to understand it's electrical. And I'm just like, boom, it's not some religious thing. It's just a dynamic of electricity and how nature works. And so from that, it's been sort of, I've been trying to view things or allow that um application of the Trinity to apply it to things as I go. And you'll actually see when I show you the Zodiac stuff, there's a Trinity that's involved in it.
yeah, dude, I
Right.
love it.
So
I mean, real quick, that your talk of the Trinity, that has been, and I'm just saying this, I'm being sincere, has been the only one that actually has made sense to me. Like all of them, I've been able to comprehend, but just that with the anode cathode electricity and knowing we're an
yeah,
electric, like that one has been one of like this makes the most sense. And it doesn't take away from all this coming being perfect design coming from creator, coming from source, whatever people want to call it. It doesn't by any means. It actually just solidifies it even more of knowing this is very clear. It's not, well, it can be interpreted this way. You have to no, you have to look. It's like, yeah, and I get confused. This is like that makes sense. You need these two to make electricity. Electricity creates is life. So anyway,
that's it. Yeah, that's it. It's at the fundamental, and because of that simplicity of it, and because of that application of it, um, yeah, it's really, I think we need to start thinking about the Trinity and how they applied it back in the day to really get a feel for how they're going about things. So
yeah, real quick, I know you're gonna pull some up, but just taking what we're experiencing now and we have been experiencing, and you deal with people who are taking other people's energy, like they're an energy sucker, this and that, or oh, this food really grogs me down, or oh, this really amps me up. I feel good. I feel great. What are we talking about? We're just talking about someone's electricity, their charge. And then, as I've said many times for those who listen, and I'll continue to say, it's like people say things, they don't even realize what they're saying. Well, they'll be like, oh man, I just need to recharge my battery, or I need to, man, this person's really draining me. It's like, what are you saying? You're literally talking about yourself as
yeah,
you are this, you're not just, but you have electricity. This, you're not a battery per se, but you work very much in ways that an electricity needs to happen. If the electricity is lacking, we get disease. If we're missing the things that create the electricity, then if you have too much of
yeah.
it, a lot of times we need to expel it. We need to work. We need to do this. We need to exercise, whatever it may be. So anyway,
And the other thing is, it's not like it's positive and negative, but it's not like negative is in like the devil and
all right.
angels and devils. You know what I mean? Like it's really not to do with that. It's more like, say if you all went on the angel side and all that was positivity, it's like keeping your arm constantly on. You're just like,
Mm,
well, I prefer to be able to relax my arm so I can actually move it. You
yep,
know what I mean? Like,
totally.
so is the negative, which one's which? You can't tell, because they both have an action that helps the other. It's just a reflection of each other.
100% agree with that. And we can go down that a whole other day, but I yes, to keep it simple, I agree with you 100%.
Okay, so I went through the menorah sort of stuff, how that's related to the lunar divisions, and then I started looking at, well, some pages that I was looking at was I came across, where is it? This one. And it was basically, I got a link through, and I found this Arc de Triomphe, right?
Mm,
And so it's an old mud flood building, and then I started looking at it a little bit closer, and you could see here that it's the way it's designed. It's got the singular point. It's got actually 14. I don't know if people will be able to see that very clearly. It's actually got 14 spikes all the way around it. sort of I think it's 14. It was hard when I counted it, but and then you could see these roads all coming off.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Ben, and I said, "Oh, this is a zodiac on the ground. You know, and they've put it into the ground here. It's just like one of those stone things that I was showing you before, where you can tell where things are, what the sun and the moon are doing, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, but it doesn't look very even. Like some of the segments are bigger than others." And I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting." So I started playing around with the actual degrees and put it on my iPad and got
Yeah.
the lines on there and worked out roughly what degrees there were. And I'm like, well, there has to be some sort of geometry to this. So I was racking my brain for a while, and so we'll go through some of. I've made a little video to share.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll play it up.
And I'll show you where I get it from. It's a cool program for people don't know. We'll just go back here. Like you can actually, it's called Geometry GeoGebra. And
Yeah, it's like algebra,
yeah,
GeoGebra.
yeah. So you can do all your geometry on here. I prefer to do it with an actual compass and that, and I recommend people do drawings and really have a
Sure.
play with it because it's so cool,
Yeah.
so much fun.
So
So we'll go through a few of these geometries.
let's do it.
Is that working there?
Yeah, we're seeing it play.
Yeah, so this one's you're going to be your basic flower of life.
Yeah.
So you basically start with your vesica, and then you work your way around wherever the circle intersects, right?
Mm.
So that's what most people know how to do that one. It's pretty basic, and that will give you your 12 segments.
Mm.
Let me speed it up a little bit. Be here all day. So yeah, so that gives you 12 divisions, and they're all even 30 degrees, right?
Right, right.
And that's not what we're seeing with that Arc de Triomphe type thing. So this next one is how you would do the 8. So your divisions of 8, and this would be sort of that stuff, that lunar stuff that I was talking about before, and it's to do with like the turtle and things like that.
Yep. And when you say turtle, you're talking about like turtle shell.
Yeah, like the 4 feet of the turtle and things.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it's basically it. Pretty simple. Now this one, not many people. I don't know if many people know about it, but it's to do with that symbol of that everyone sort of points at and goes, "That's the elite symbol," which is your Eye of Providence, right? And that's the triangle with the eye in it, but it's actually a certain type of geometry. So it's quite simple to do. You'll see it here play out.
And most of
And
us,
that's basically it there. But you're just drawing a triangle in that, joining those dots, and then all of a sudden you're getting. I'll just stop it there. But you're getting the eye, and that's actually called a lens. And then you're getting the triangle. So you're getting the triangle with the eye in the center.
yeah.
So that's the geometry for it.
Right. And what we
Now
also
this is
to those
yep.
the elites or so-called elites invert everything. They take everything. They don't have any real creative thoughts of their own. A lot of them, they're always taking things that are naturally there or from others, like you said. So they're spinning it.
Yeah, they steal everything, man. That's what they're parasites.
Yeah.
It's what they do. So this is the Eye of Providence.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is, you see in this picture back here, the Eye of Providence is in the middle of the zodiac.
And Mercury.
It's actually got the Mercury in it. Yep. So we know there's a correlation between this Eye of Providence, or between the sun and the moon, which you see in the Masonic sort of stuff as well. And we know that there's, so we can say that this geometry is part of this.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, that was playing on me for a while. So I'll just go back to our video.
And this is just real quick as you're getting back to it. It's just so fascinating to me is people, on social media or whatever. And I'm not anywhere near where you are by any means, but it's like the amount of time and energy, and people say they don't have the time. Okay, so be it. They choose not to put their time to it. All it is someone who has to be curious and use their mind, use their intuition, use their imagination, use their creativity to explore, to try to get to places where you are, where you're coming and discovering these things. And that's what a lot of people can't get is they go, oh, you're just put whatever insult into a name that they want to call people. And it's like, no, this is me being curious and using my God-given creativity to
Yeah.
explore, and find out more.
Yeah, and it's not saying like something's untouchable because some dickhead uses that symbolism. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like who owns geometry?
Right. Exactly.
It's like I found a geometry in it, so who owns it? No one owns it,
Right.
and especially not those guys who have basically who know all this stuff and leave us with nothing. So
They know.
whatever I can do to help other people to
Right. It's how funny how we become of
give
like
them a boost.
be nervous or afraid of the number six or different angles in like geometry creates a fear because what you start to find out about the elites and you start to see, man, you go, no, man, they're taking this is actually information we should learn. We should be like, I wonder why they use that, you know. And so anyway, what are you showing us on this one?
So when I did on the iPad to look at the geometry of that thing on the ground, um, the
The art,
triumph
yeah, art.
type arch thing, um, what I was trying to get to was the actual degrees that were showing up when I put the lines and stuff on the iPad. I was getting a roughly 33 degrees, and then I was getting 26 and then another 33, and it was divisions in this particular manner. And I just started playing around with this, and really I don't know how I come up with it. I've just played around with it and sort of found the degrees. So let's play it through.
Yeah.
It took me a while to figure it out, but so there's in the middle, there's that geometry of the eye. And then there's just basically another circle added to the other end. And then there's this cross created. Now you do that again and you do it the other way. I'm trying to figure it out here, but
See, what's even cool about just seeing that is just seeing you, even though it's recording, that pause of going, I'm thinking, I'm using my creative mind to think. Like for me, that's because we're seeing in this, not in real time, but we're seeing you going through the process of going, something's here intuitively, it's calling me. Now I want to find it. And now you're doing
yeah.
this. And that for me is what I mean, you didn't show me this in our conversation last time, but it's beautiful because look now what we're seeing is exactly.
And what's really interesting, I'll show you a better picture that I did that shows this better. But so yeah, that's the whole geometry there, and each of these segments is about 32.4. But you can see it's quite a manageable way of actually producing this type of depiction. Okay?
Right.
It's not too hard to do. So here's a better version of it.
Yep.
Now, what I've done is put in some extra lines here, and what you're actually, I was like, well, why did they use this geometry? It doesn't, they could just divide it up. Why bother using this? And it was really because it both incorporates the 12 and the 8. So with the seed of life geometry, it's really hard to get the 8 folds. So that's why I was showing you those two before, how there's like a geometry for the 12 and then there's a geometry for the 8.
Mhm.
But with this one, even though you're not getting quite even, spacings, you're still getting a 12 segmented, but you're also keeping that 8 um
Yeah.
yeah, showing up there. So I just found that was fascinating. So maybe they've started with the um, so you could just use it both ways. In other words, you can use it as a 12 or an 8 if you wanted to. And I just thought that's really dynamic way of actually flipping between. It's almost like flipping between metric and
Right.
imperial, like really
Yeah.
quickly.
And so would you say then, based off of this pre-mud flood arc de triomphe or whatever, are we seeing that this was made at a time potentially then when the newer zodiac was around, when they were dealing with the 12 signs?
Um,
Or do you think this,
I don't know. I just think they, yeah,
I mean, I mean,
they
I don't
probably
know.
employed both. They probably got their own history of how things evolved, but you can
Yeah,
see
yeah,
it in here, and it's not. You can see it's not quite because of just really the camera angle, but
yeah.
you
But
get the general layout.
it's
It's really close.
it's near identical. And
Yeah,
what's even just more fascinating, right, is like you said, is that Eye of Providence is right there as well. Like it's all in there, but it's you need to have eye
yeah,
see, right? And just your layover in itself just can even show it that much more. And how our minds can deceive us, and like what's right in front of us, we can't even see. But it's also a lot of people we don't know what we're supposed to see, right? Or we're not sure that that's even in our wheelhouse. So,
yeah. It's just in some of this stuff. It's like you just have to go through enough information and really start to see things that pop out constantly.
mhm.
It's a little bit like that, and that's sort of how I research. I'm not like bury myself in one book or this book. I'm really flippant when it comes to researching. I'm like, oh well, check this out, check this out, check
Mhm.
this out. Oh, what about that? And I've literally got like 50 pages open on my phone or whatever. Every time I think about something, I'm like, what about that? I'll just ask a question,
Yeah.
punch it in, see what happens,
Right.
you know.
And you're doing exactly what every single one of us did as a child, just constantly asking why. And as we know, but
Yeah.
it's for a lot of people that people don't want to ask why anymore. They just go, it's just because it is, or don't ask questions, right? So, but
And don't get me wrong, I make that like for every like thing that I'm presenting, what I've found that's taken probably months now, and it's like all the stuff that you don't see of all my fuck ups, basically.
oh,
You
dude,
know,
dude, if you looked at my Google too, like when I'm going through like, and I have questions and I'm like going down rabbit holes, like you'll just see ones that I like forgot to like exit. I'm like, oh man, I actually like followed that. I'm like, oh, that was well, it was got me to where I am now, but I'm also like, eesh, I'm embarrassed for myself. Like I was like trying to connect things. And I'm like, oh, there's intuitively I was like, nah, this isn't it. This isn't it. But I'm like, this, yeah, people don't need to know that I messed up.
and the other thing I remember telling you a little while back that we just for all of those mistakes that I made, it's like one less that I have to go down, one less little path. So it's sort of, if you make enough mistakes, you're sort of narrowing down. You're going to hit a winner soon.
Oh, dude,
So
totally. And I remember you said that the other day, and it's that's been sticking with me since because it was just kind of just like an aha moment of like that's why when we talk about like going through failures, going through these trials and tribulations, it's in reality, if you're staying on that path of truth and seeking truth, it's going to just give you one less option that isn't valid or it isn't the solution, and it gets you just to the solution. It's inevitable. It almost becomes inevitable, like you said. But it's just you have to stay consistent and be willing to make mistakes.
yeah, and like being aware of the problem too, like especially when it comes to this zodiac stuff. Um, Really just pinpointing a problem and sort of going at it from as many directions as you possibly can.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I try to do, and
Well,
just really be open with it. And
it
sometimes things don't work for a while, so I just like flip and go, well,
totally.
maybe I'll concentrate on something else for a while, or
It's
things can rest and bubble away. And
it's just giving things a
Yeah.
minute to breathe, right? You know, it's like your relationship with the muscles. Like you have to give your muscles a minute to breathe. Not that you can't move them, not that you can't obviously still create some sort of electricity and heat, but it's like not giving it as much attention as you once did. And then you have those
Yeah.
aha moments and come back and go, oh, I should go back to that. Like intuitively, I need to go back to it. Some things call me back to it, but most people don't do that. Not most people. I don't want, allegedly, there's a lot of people that choose not to. So, but yeah. So what are we looking at now? What is all this
Okay.
stuff that we talked about kind of led us to here?
Okay. So, right. This is, we'll go back to some of the processional ideas. And it's really, you have basically three zodiacs, right? You have a sidereal zodiac that is sort of one portion of it that says, well, the sun is in Pisces, like we're seeing here, on the 21st, which is the equinox, and that's where the sun is.
Mhm.
And then you have the tropical guys that say, well, we're still using, our tropical zodiac, and it says, well, the year starts with Aries.
Right.
And so, and they're going, well, there was precession or whatever occurred. And so what, this, like, I put it this way, it's like you get invited to a party and you're not an hour late, you're a month late. It's a little bit different. Like you're actually nearly 30 degrees out of alignment. So um that was a big discrepancy. I'm just like, yeah, there's a whole system, but you can't throw it out either. Do you know what I mean? You can't throw out this whole system that's there, and it says we move from Cancer to Capricorn, like I was saying earlier. So it's like you can't throw it out. And we know the sun's in Pisces, and we know these people who are doing this geometry, like I just showed before, aren't stupid and can't work out where the sun is.
Mhm.
You know, and then we have the older system, which says, well, the equinoxes and the solstices are in, the man, the bull, the lion, and the eagle. So what I started to do was like, well, what would you do um, if you're actually studying the sky? You know, and it was really your friend Dylan that tipped me off. He said, well, because it was about, well, when are you going to look at it? What brings the day? You're going to look at it before you get up to go, do your fields or whatever it is. It's just, I'm just being a farmer for a second here. I'm trying to work out where I am in the season, what I got to plant, what things I need to do, being very sort of farm orientated because it matters to me as well, so it's like you get up very early in the morning and you go and see what star sign is preceding the sun. And so when I did that, I saw that the man on the equinox, put on the equinox there, is actually, I'll see if I can make this a bit bigger for people, is actually rising. So that's what you see, and you don't actually see, you won't
Right.
see anything as soon as the sun rises. You're
Yeah.
not going to see Pisces. Pisces is actually blotted out.
Right.
And so, and then, so what sign is bringing the sun in. Okay. So the other one is like, well, that doesn't give me the tropical. So I'm sorry, I went the wrong way there. So when you follow the day through and you look at the westing, because I was starting to look at, what was around, and when you would actually see the signs in the evening as the sun goes down, first sign to appear to follow the sun is Aries.
Right.
So all on the equinox, these three different modalities,
Mhm.
sidereal, tropical, and the older one are all part of the one system. And it's actually showing three different elements of, or three different bits of information that you can work out about where you are in the season.
Right. And so just real quick for clarification, some of them are potentially showing you what's rising. Some of them are showing the death or the westing or the falling. They're fixing it. They're all saying the same thing. This is just me dumbing it down for me. They're all saying the same thing, but just looking at a different part of it.
Yep. So what you would do if you missed that morning sun, you would go out into the evening and you'd see, okay, the sun just fell. What's the sign that's following the sun? And that would just be a really easy way to see where you are in the season, because you know that the westing sign, the sun's in front of it. The morning sign, the sun's behind it.
Right.
And so you're really starting to play with this Trinity idea, pops out again, doesn't it? Because you've got three signs now that you're dealing with. You're dealing with, and I'm still working out what's what, you know, in a sense. But I would call the morning sign, the rising sign. I would call that the mercurial sign. That would just be my.
And why so?
Because he's related to the rooster, and because it is just the sign that brings the sun into play, sort of thing.
Yep.
It could be the sun too, but it just doesn't seem like it, just because of that idea of being. He's like the Mercury character plays the role of every zodiac form in a sense, but it's still to be determined. It could be the sun, it could be, but if you look at it as the rising sign sort of brings life to the sun, brings it out, is born from that, and the sign behind it is actually sort of your dead sign, because it's not there. You know, it's been completely hidden.
Right.
So that's an interesting idea. I'm just playing with ideas at the moment. And so this westing sign is the dying sign. It's about to be blotted out by the sun. So that's why I'm sort of tending towards the and you see a lot of depictions with, you know, the man over the bull stabbing the bull. So, you know, is that we'll sort of go into that a bit more, but
but yeah, I mean, it's so fascinating though what you're showing us though too, and what you were saying now, and you said in our last conversation, how the three different ways of looking at the zodiac, the old, the tropic. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's the old one, the tropical one, or the tropic zodiac.
Yeah, tropical, and the sidereal. The sidereal's where the sun actually is.
Right.
And
you just demonstrated all of those in three different ones in this one passing
in one movement, and it does it the whole way around. So this one here, that you can see the sun is in Gemini, and that's actually the solstice, the summer solstice. It's in Gemini.
All for those listening, he's showing us the path of the sun at the vernal equinox, the summer solstice now, and then he'll demonstrate the same thing for the fall equinox or the autumnal equinox and the winter solstice.
Yep. So that's where it is now. That's where the sun lies, but
so we're in it. Yeah, so the sun is in Gemini on the summer solstice is what we're seeing for those listeners.
Yep. And Aldebaran, the main star in the bull, is leading the sun. He's bringing the sun forth. So in the morning, that's where you would see it.
Right. And so what you were saying, based off of the four signs of the bull, the lion, the eagle, and the man.
The man.
they're actually, the way they're described, you would venture to say isn't correct in that, based on what we're seeing here, if we're following the bull leading the sun at the summer solstice, that in reality, potentially, it sounds like the bull is actually the sign of summer solstice.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's right. Um, and you see it in it's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in the Bible. So that would be the sign, the sort of things that would correlate to it,
Right.
as well as the older ones. But the man is, it actually describes it how you would do the cross. Like that sort of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually giving you this that religious symbol, because it's telling you the two equinoxes, and then it's telling you there's two solstices.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really really fascinating. But it's just like yeah. So on one side of let me show you the character,
Yeah.
because it's biblical, but it's also not at the same time. It's older than
It's over.
oh well, yeah. So here's, you got the mercurial figure coming out of the vesica.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that geometry that I was talking about earlier. The vesica creates everything basically, or that's your Trinity.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the man and the lion. These are your two equinoxes on one side, and then your solstices on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's like that.
Right. Yeah, and just
So
for those, also for those listening, and you brought it up, I'll just shout out. He's talking. He got a lot of this kind of aha moments from listening to Dylan Sakosio. Highly recommend going check out Dylan's books, Spirit World. There's 3 of them. He's coming out with the 4th one. You can find him on Amazon. This is a plug, not purposely. His work is really, really great. He has a lot of great ideas, and he also shows how he came to them. It's not just him being like, oh, I had this idea. Like, he shows you how he came to be with those. And he shows a lot of exactly what we're talking about here, a lot of similarities. So how to
yeah. Well, it was really what he was talking about with Virgo being in the night sky, and at a certain time. I think he was talking, but that's what sort of tipped me off to look at it in a different way. So yeah,
awesome.
that was great.
So what are we looking at here?
I learn off everyone. I learn off as many people as I can as well.
That's the way to do it, man. Every conversation or every just listening to other people talk, man, always keeping your mind in that set of like, hey, I can learn something here, is, in my opinion, the best way to approach any conversation. But so where are we here?
So we're still in the summer solstice here, and we're seeing that the dying sign, or the westing sign, is actually Cancer. That's related to the tropical again.
That's the crab.
It's interesting. The crab's about to die, which is a water sign. And it's interesting that you're going into summer and the crab dies. Mm-hmm. So the death of water. So you're going into the wilderness.
Yeah. I mean, for those who aren't farmers but have wherewithal to know how hot summer is and how it literally drains your plants and your soil, and you need a lot more water because it's,
and those 2 months, they're the hottest months, and then the crab starts coming back and brings back the change. So it's really fascinating that if that's the case, if they're working it like that, the sun is blotting out or killing that certain the zodiac animal, and so it's taken out of the zodiac, and so that changes the whole dynamics of the season in a sense. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's almost like you're taking a color out of the color wheel, and all of a sudden everything changes. I don't know if I'm describing that well, but it's more like that rather than a.
Well, correct me if maybe I'm hearing you correctly, but it's just interesting because this is happening every year and without fail, it's allowing people to see those and go, okay, we know this is going to be taken out of the equation. We know this, but we can prepare because we know what we're looking at. We know when things are going to happen, or we can be prepared to set forth whatever we need to do because of the elimination or the addition of whatever signs are in the sky.
Yeah. And you know, when certain things rise, they're in their full strength. They've just come back alive, and
Exactly.
now they're gaining strength again. And so
Right.
it's starting to tell. You know, I'm looking for that story, and I'm looking for that practical knowledge that you can gain from just looking at the sky. You know,
Totally. Yeah.
and it tells you where you are in the season,
Right.
and what these figures and how they're
And
relating
like,
to each other.
real quick, I know
So
real quick, just on that, like just think about the people who are such amazing farmers. And if they know like, hey, by this time I need to put my potatoes in, or hey, by this kind of month I need to get this in. But think about if they were able to use the sky clock to know like on this day, this specific day, around this time, you can get that
yeah,
specific to go, that's when I need to put them in. If I can do that, like that's my highest yield, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. Not all about, but a big portion. Like I just think about how much more people could do, right? Or like at this time is when I need to do this for myself care, well-being, like at this month, at this day. Like
yeah, it's a proper calendar, man. It's not based on it's based on energies and things like that. It's not based on an app that says, you've got 31 days in this month. And I mean, that's just ridiculous. Whenever you look at our calendar, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, have your month even. I mean, it's crazy. 364 days. Just do it like that with the extra day off at the end, having one that's outside the calendar, whatever. Anyway, so I
but
could rant.
yeah, I was to say, but yeah, I'm gonna take us too far off either. So we are now, where are we at?
In the morning, looking at the autumnal equinox, looking at the rise of Leo. So the sun is actually in
Virgo.
Virgo, and Libra is a dying sign.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
So Libra, the Scorpion and Libra are a little bit out because the Scorpion's arms actually come up to here. So the bottom of the Libra's Virgo and Libra are actually a really, really big sign in the sky, but they're actually cut in half. She's two signs, which was the frond and the furrow. And one was about harvesting the grain, and one was about planting the winter seed. So they're two that when
so that's what we were just saying about knowing when to do what, planting wise specifically. But
yeah, that's right. And it's a story of the plants drying out in the summertime, and then the seed falls to ground and goes into the earth. That's this story, and it's the same as like Persephone or Persephone, and she gets trapped in Hades, goes through, held in the earth until springtime. So that's part of that story.
And once again, not to just, Dylan does a great job of explaining all of that in the books.
Yep.
So and it's come from someone who's learning this as I'm going. Had no background, so really worth checking out. This is something that catches your guys' interest. So, all right, so now we are in the winter solstice.
Winter, yep. So just this is the old zodiac. So you can see the rising sign before, which would be Antares. It's in Scorpio.
Right.
And so
we're talking about when it says Antares, we're talking about the four royal stars that we were mentioning earlier. So, and their relevance.
Yep. Anti-Aries. Yep. And then the Sagittarius is blotted out, and then Capricorn is dying or about to die. So this seems a little bit funny because well, it's an earth sign, it's earth and water, and so that's when everything freezes, and so you've got the earth and water that's freezing and dying.
And this is obviously not coincidence, not by accident. This is all very, very clear, precise, perfect design.
So the other thing I'll point out here is that the next 2 months, the man is dying and dies, and then is resurrected at the spring equinox. So there's been talk for a long time about being only 10 months. So you start in March and you work your way around to the 10, and then there's missing 2 months, right? So that's your January and February. So it actually goes 1, 2, 3, 4. That's why you got September's 7 and October's 8, and then you finish on December. Well, after that, the man's dying. So they're 2 dead months, and then he resurrects again at the spring equinox. And I think that's really fascinating too. That part of the story. I'm sure there's it seems very biblical to me.
There's definitely something there. They're talking about having, as you said, the two just in that originally 10 signs, or 10 months rather. And we see it obviously in the Latin, in the language we use today. It's not like it's foreign to us. We say it every, oh, we're in December, or oh, we're in November, and you're looking at 1, 2, you're
counting
you're literally
too earlier.
Right. And when we know 10 is the completion, it brings us through one full cycle, or through one whole revelation, or something like, revolution kind of thing. You're looking, now going back to 1 to the power of 0, or not the power of 0, but like 1, 0, just adding, levels to it. So I'm saying this in complete layman's terms, and it's late here, but y'all know what I'm saying. So
yeah.
I'll go fuck
we'll wrap it up pretty soon. I'm nearly finished. So
I love this, dude. This is exciting.
This is basically the this is the chart of the 3. So the rising, the dead, and the dying sort of thing. It seems a bit dark, doesn't it? But anyway,
you said that actually after we're done. This is awesome.
Yeah, so it actually shows the position. So this dead portion would be where the sun's blotting it out. So this would be a sidereal. This one here would be the following, the dying one, which would be the tropical, and this would be the old world zodiac. So what it means is,
go on. Huh? Sorry, go on. Sorry, I'm cutting off. Keep going.
What it means is every month has 3 different signs associated with it. So what I actually did, and this will help confirm that there is something here to people. I'll show you really quickly. That thing will pop down when I try and press on it. So this is the Ichthyosaurus Centaurus.
Yeah.
So this is, here is a what does it say? It has a horse, fish lower body, and a man involved. So this creature here that they're depicting, and you can see it's a pretty old world sort of thing. Is a man, a horse, and a fish tail. So let's go back to our chart for a second. So we look for a man, what was it? A horse.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I said it was
fish.
Yeah. So, Capricorn's got the fish tail. So it's a goat with a fish tail. And then it's got then Sagittarius is a horse. A horse with a bow. And then you've got the man, which is Aquarius. So you've got those the 3 signs depicting January.
Right. Dude, it's so when you break it down like this, because you can do this with other ones. You have other ones, correct?
Yeah, I did the Faunus. I think it's only got 2 signs, but I also did a couple of others, which was related to the Mithra. So I think Mithra, when we have a look at this thing, would have Aries, the bull, and the twins. It's either one of these two. I'll have to figure out which it was. But I'm also look at the festivals, celebrations, and things like
Right.
that that are sort of depicting this.
Right.
Um,
Oh,
it also, there's stuff like maybe Passover, which would be about the lamb passing overhead and
mhm.
dying, or those sort of things, or when the lamb, so spring equinox or April.
See, this is what's so fascinating to me. And for those obviously who are in touch with what Lucas is presenting, like you get what's going on. But for those who are this is new, these aren't what he's saying is not a far stretch. It is what it is. There are countless people. I bring Dylan up again, but Crow, people who look chance over at Interverse podcast, like they show you and can break down based off of text to say, hey, this is what is being said, and they can then tell you exactly what month they're talking about, or what's
Mhm.
months being depicted, or what these symbols, which are all around us, are saying. Like you said
Where
earlier,
you are in the season
where
and
you
what
are in
it's
the season.
doing, like say Samson and the lion. So this may have correlation to what the sun's doing in Leo.
Right.
Just killing the lion. There's a whole thing of seeming like they're killing all these animals at certain periods of time, but it's actually talking about the it's not talking about actual animals.
Right. It's all
So
these allegories. Okay.
yeah, so this the faun or fauna is part goat, part man, and is also talking about fertility. So let's have a look here in the chart. So part goat, part man, and fertility with Pisces and things like that. So,
Right. So
and you got February.
see, and
So
this is so cool. It's like basically a little like a not a cheat code, but it's like a key. Like when you're looking at a map, it's like a key of like, all
yeah,
right,
but it's cheat code. That's
yeah,
all it is. It's a
yeah,
cheat code, guys.
yeah,
You go into level whatever.
yeah, right. It's in there. Yeah, you're like looking at it. It's like, all right, what are we looking at? It's like, all right, we got a horse. All right, I got a horse. All right, good. Like what are you looking at? Like, is it
Yeah.
Mars?
Bingo. Got a
Yeah,
mythological creature.
yeah,
I was looking at another one. It was a chimera or something, and it had or the lion. The had a couple of others, but it was basically drawing a line across the sky, and that you would see two ends of the. So yeah, I
yeah,
would like to find all the months and sort of start correlating it like that. It'd
dude,
be
and that would be
cool in
so
Greek or Roman or something.
for sure, man. And this goes back, I think, to kind of bring a full circle here as we land this plane. Is like it's about getting back to the folklore and the stories, and knowing that they're telling us something so much bigger, and just figuring out what those stories are and what we can then know more about potentially history that is available or might be out there, but it's right in front of us. It's just knowing how to, you know, decode it. And then also ultimately like, hey, what does that mean about us? What does that mean about our crop? What does that mean about the world around us? So I think that's what
Yeah,
you're
and
so
how can we utilize it? Yeah, that's brilliant. I reckon it's fun. It's been fun doing this. It's been a real challenge for me, but to have something that I can share, and possibly other people will just come in and go, right, let's take this and do their own thing with it. That'd be amazing.
well, I agree with you. And what you brought up earlier that really has stuck with me too is like being able to take it and make it so simple. Because in many ways, when you look at it this way, it is that simple. You just kind of know
Yeah.
kind of the basis of like, hey, what are we looking at? What's the name for this? What's the name for that? But then taking that simplicity and then teaching it to your children and teaching it to the youth. And we love movies and stories about like the character who comes in is like the Homer character being like, we're in the world of, where the dragon breathing it. Like we see these movies and we like hearing those stories, and it's
Yeah.
exciting for us of like even like these fairy tales or like the Harry Potters, like, but even they're telling you the Zodiac, they're giving you the stories of
Yeah, and what can we uncover from those, from understanding where we are in those stories, and because they do use the zodiac now. I always talk about Barbary, that Barbary movie that's got heaps of encoding for the
Yeah.
Zodiac. And it's like the story is brilliant.
Yeah.
Once you recognize those stories, like you're not just seeing it at a surface level. You're like, this relates to this, and it can actually,
Yeah.
it's like that stackable information that I've talked about before, where your information is stacked on one another, and it's
To complete a story. It's completing a
yeah.
story. It's basically completing a cycle around,
Mm.
this realm, and it's so exciting, man. And I appreciate you bringing me along for the journey, and I can't thank you enough for those who listen. I talk about it all the time, of being a mentor and just making my basically the child in all of us, that spark of wanting to know more. That for me is something that has been sparked once again, and not just with this, but other conversations, even just like growing, planting, and then as we said earlier here, then going once again, why, why, but not just to things that are seen, frivolous, but like to things that actually matter, like in
Yeah.
the sky matters. It's been there and it will always be there. And it's always going
Yeah.
to tell us these stories. And they're not going to be like, oh, since you're not paying attention, we're going to go away. We're not making enough money in the box office off this story. It's like, no, that story is going to always be there. It's just not a way, like, I want to know it.
And to realize that we're at such a low point, in humanity. If most of the people that listen to this
They
can
know.
pretty much recognize it. They know,
Yeah.
we know, but at the end of the day, we realize that we're at a low point. We have to try as best we can to undo some of the damage that's been done. And for me, I enjoy doing it. I enjoy sharing and whatever, but also when it's for my kids as well, so
Yeah,
they have
man.
something cool.
I can assure you that I will be doing as much as I can as well to be sharing this. And is just like any kid, continue to ask questions like you, man, and keep trying to do my part as I'm still learning this. So I'm very grateful, man. But anyway, thank you everyone so much for listening. Lucas, always a pleasure, man. And I'll be talking to you sooner than later. But for everyone else, we will see you soon. And thanks for tuning in. All right. Have a good one, guys.
Thank you.
Peace.